All right, welcome everyone to our weekly AP Top 25 men's basketball reaction to the poll. I'm Andy Katz. You can reach me at the Andy Katz on Twitter X and the real Andy Katz on Instagram. All right, so here's how we're going to lay it out. We're going to look at the top 25, look at my Power 36, talk about my player of the week, team of the week, games to watch, who's got stock up, and who's got stock down. All right, so let's first deal with the top 25. Few tweaks here, as you can see on your screen. UConn remains one with a absolute dominating performance over Marquette on Saturday. First of two meetings with the Huskies and the Golden Eagles. Houston is now at 2, as the Cougars have a monster game on Monday night against Iowa State. Iowa State trying to get the sweep of the Cougars, knocking off Houston earlier this season in Ames. Purdue drops to 3 after losing at Ohio State on Sunday. Kind of a troubling loss, at least for the Boilermakers, in that Ohio State really had been struggling. They fired Chris Holtmann, got Jake Diebler taking over on an interim basis, and Purdue kind of got knocked back a little. It was a little disappointing in the way they came out on that road effort. But it was a bit of a desperate Ohio State team. Arizona checks in at 4. Wildcats have a monster showdown coming up against Washington State, believe it or not, for the top spot in the Pac-12. And over the weekend, as you were here on the BR app, we discussed it. Arizona, Purdue, Houston, and UConn were all 4 number 1 seeds. Tennessee, Iowa State, Marquette, Duke, Kansas, and Carolina. I don't really have a problem with any of those schools being in the top 10. Baylor, Illinois, Alabama, Auburn. I thought Auburn should slide down more after getting beat at home by Kentucky. You see Creighton, Dayton, there's Kentucky. St. Mary's, San Diego State, South Carolina, Washington State, Colorado State, Texas Tech, Florida, and BYU. So I don't have an issue. I'm glad to see Washington State, by the way. What a job Kyle Smith has done. He has to be on any list for National Coach of the Year. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but he has to get consideration. What Kyle Smith has done in Pullman is phenomenal, considering that they got raided in the transfer portal. And look, Colorado State, San Diego State, all these Mountain West teams are in, they're out, they're in, they're out, because they're beating each other at home. Not many are winning on the road. So it's pretty balanced top 5 or 6, really 7 when you include UNLV. But they're not going to be in the tournament unless they win it. Texas Tech, Florida, no issue again. I think they've played well at times. You can place them different places in your poll, in, out, somewhere in the top 36. BYU, I slid them out because of their loss to Oklahoma State at the bottom of the Big 12. But I'm glad St. Mary's is getting more recognition for being undefeated and the team to beat in the WCC right now. All right, so let's go to my Power 36 to compare. 1 through 13 is the first screen that you'll see, if I'm not mistaken, or 1 through 12, I think it is. Thank you. UConn, Houston, Arizona, Purdue. So I had Purdue 4 versus 3. Alabama, Iowa State, Marquette, Kansas, Baylor, Tennessee, Carolina, Duke. So we all kind of agree in that top dozen for the most part. So not really much different. 13 to 24, where it gets a little different. So again, similar teams, except for a couple teams here that you did not see in your top 25. South Florida. South Florida, 11 wins in a row. They are atop the American, absolutely blistered FAU, and they're the team to beat now in the American. Absolute surprise story in college basketball right now, what's happening in Tampa. The Zags, I think they're playing well enough to be a top 25 team. Remember, it was a week ago they won at Kentucky. I think the same thing in Michigan State and Dayton and TCU. So, and as you see, I have San Diego State and Washington State and St. Mary's all in that top group as well. So I had Florida, I had South Florida, Michigan State, Gonzaga, and TCU in my grouping. Now let's go to my last part, which was 25 to 36. So look, you can quibble South Carolina, Auburn. I didn't have them in the top 25 because they both lost last week. If you want to flip them, that's fine with me. But South Carolina's ahead of them in standings. There you see Pitt at 28. Jeff Capel, again, second season in a row, late surge to get in position to potentially get in. And they won 2 games in the tournament last year in Dayton and then the first round game before losing in the second round. Virginia drops after losing at home to NC State. Clemson lost to NC State. Virginia lost to Pitt at home. So they both lost, so they drop. Northwestern, great road win on Sunday over Indiana. Nebraska has won a couple in a row. Texas Tech has been win, lose, all that. They did beat Kansas, but then they lost after that. Utah State, and here, last 2 I'm giving some love to. Loyola Chicago, out of the A10. Drew Valentine doing a great job. They're now tied with Dayton atop the A10. And Grand Canyon, Bryce Drew's doing, again, a sensational coaching job, second year in a row. I don't have Wisconsin in here right now because they lost again. They've lost 5 of 6 games. So it's kind of hard to rank them right now. I just don't see how you can justify it. But they'll be back. I'm not worried about them in the tournament or anything like that. All right. So now let us go to, hold on. Here we go. Let's go to our yes, we're going to do team and player of the week. And let's first, sorry about that. Just had a little blip there. There we go. All right. So now let's go to our player of the week. And it's Jared McCain. Jared McCain of Duke. A lot of people were harassing me saying I should have had Hinson from Pitt. McCain, think about this. He had 35 points in a road win at Florida State, 8 of 11 threes, 12 of 20 overall, 4 boards, 3 steals. Earlier in the week, he dropped 17 and 10 in a win over Wake Forest at home. Team of the week, I don't think there's any question. It's Kentucky. Kentucky was kind of reeling the week before with what had happened with their home loss to Gonzaga. They lost 3 in a row at home. They beat Ole Miss at home, and then they go on the road and hold Auburn to 59 points, 70 to 59. If we get that Kentucky going forward, this is a team that could certainly get to Phoenix. All right, let's look at our top 10 games right now going forward this week. Starting Monday night, Iowa State at Houston. Who would have thought that this would be the game of the year in the Big 12? But it is. And should have a great atmosphere in Houston after they lost early in the season in Ames. UConn at Creighton on Tuesday. The Blue Jays are playing well now, and they're not going to catch UConn for the title. But, this is their best shot, obviously, to beat them at home. Alabama at Kentucky on Saturday. Alabama's atop the SEC. Kentucky has more talent. Let's see. Can they win at home? They just beat Ole Miss at home. Have they rectified their issues? Houston at Baylor on Saturday. Again, another Big 12 showdown. Baylor's going to need that one if they want to try to finish in second. Carolina at Virginia on Saturday. Virginia after losing to Pitt. Again, this is a key game if they want to try to finish in that top 3 in the ACC. Washington State at Arizona. A Pac-12 showdown. It's kind of crazy. Pac-12 showdown. Washington State going for the sweep of the Wildcats. It's just ridiculous that the job Kyle Smith has done. San Diego State at Utah State, as I said earlier, in the Mountain West Conference, is so balanced. Everyone's just winning at home. So here's a great chance for the Aggies to get up on the Aztecs in the standings. Florida at Alabama. Florida, one of those hot teams, won 3 in a row. No one talking about Todd Golden is quietly putting together an NCAA tournament bid. Colorado State at New Mexico. Lobos lost at San Diego State. They have suffered only 2 home losses in the league. Kind of surprising. Boise State and UNLV cannot afford a third. Lost to Colorado State on the road in Fort Collins earlier this season. Then Yale at Cornell. both tied atop the Ivy League standings. So pretty big showdown to see who's going to get that top seed in the Ivy. And here's where I would say my stock up and stock down are. I would say that right now, UConn way up, Kentucky up, South Florida stock way up, Loyola Chicago now topped the A10, Florida stock is up, Illinois stock up as well, Drake tied with Indiana State and San Diego State. All those schools stock is up right now. Stock down, Memphis not in the tournament. They got to win the American. Butler has suffered a couple of losses in a row. They're on the outside looking in right now. Indiana State, I think their at-large chances are gone after losing a couple in a row. And I would say slightly Texas A&M because they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. They've got good wins, but then they lost a couple in a row as well. So I would put them on the downside right now in terms of where their stock is. All right. So now let's look at, let me take some of your questions. So Sam Cochran, I'm sure he's referring, I don't know, are you referring to the AP Top 25 as a horrible list or my Power 36? Either way, I disagree with you, Sam. And, we don't disagree on me and the AP poll on really the top dozen. And I will tell you, after that, however you want to go from 13 to 36, you can put them in a lot of different order. I mean, I think Alabama should be higher. And as I did in my, Alabama's top the SEC. So, Alabama checks in here in the AP poll at 13. And, you can argue with me, but I have them at 5. They're playing great. They're top the SEC. I just disagree with you. Iowa State is a 1 seed if they win tonight versus Houston, says Krishant. 1. They definitely have a chance to be a 1. There's no question. They are trending that way because Kansas is, ahead of them, was ahead of them on the top 16 because they had wins over Houston and UConn, which are 1 seeds. But if Iowa State beats Houston and gets the sweep of Houston, yes, I think they definitely would be trending toward a 1 seed. Bryce says, I hope Wisconsin gets back on track. I think they ultimately will. They've not closed out games well. No Seton Hall in the Power 36. Well, let me tell you something, Brian. I debated on that, but I will say that Seton Hall, I think, will be in our bracket on Tuesday when we do our bracket. Where's Michigan State? I agree with you, Celtics 4-6-5. I have them in my top 25. Church claims that a lot of people are morons. Doesn't know why I respond. I'm just trying to engage. What's my biggest concern with Purdue going forward, Johnny? My concern is the same concern. Even though they are better, Lawyer, Smith, and Jones, I find they get tight on the road. Now, in the tournament, it's neutral. But what's going to happen in the tournament is even in Indy and Detroit, well, they will have the home base crowd. If they are down or it's a tight game with an underdog, there is always that groundswell of support and the pressure, and they don't want to get into that situation where it's, oh no, again. This may be crazy, and here I am saying this, but I think that the Indy weekend will be harder for Purdue than a Detroit weekend. And the reason I say that is I feel like they've got so much pressure to get out of that first weekend after what happened last year. And they're also going to be at home, essentially, in a building they won earlier this season when they beat Arizona, that I think they're going to feel incredibly tight early against a 16 and then either against an 8-9. But if they can get to Detroit, my gut is they will feel a sense of release, and exhale. They will release all that stress. It'll be a hard Sweet 16 game. Obviously, if they get by that, probably an even tougher Elite Eight. But I do think just getting to that second weekend, getting over that hump with this particular group, even though the year before, they were shockingly upset by St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. But I just think they need to get to that second weekend. So Carson CP says St. Mary's is not the 18th best team in the country. Again, these are not seed lines. These are how are you playing right now? They are playing well. They're undefeated in their league. And you can move teams all around in your rankings. Remember, these are subjective. This is snapshot in time with the rankings. Can Florida make a run? DX? Yeah, I think they can. Jennings says Purdue's losing to a first four team. So you got them losing to a 16 in their first round. I'm sorry, cannot see them losing back to back. TJ Otts, Coach of the Year frontrunner, says Krishant. Look, he's in there. I think it's Dan Hurley, Kelvin Sampson, and then in some order, TJ Otzelberger, Tommy Lloyd's going to be in there, Kyle Smith, Lamont Paris, Nate Oates. All of them will get some love in this. And Danny Sprinkle from Utah State, if they're able to win the Mountain West Conference. Where's Pittsburgh, Antonio Garrett? Well, they're in my Power 36. They're not here. Why am I down on Tennessee? I'm not actually. I'm not down on Tennessee. I think they could get to the Final Four. And Dalton Connect, I think, is a first-team All-American. Can Tennessee get a 1 seed? They got to win the SEC. How does OSU, I believe you mean Ohio State, make the tournament? They're going to win a lot of games. They are so down on right now they're playing Wednesday at the Big Ten tournament. Do I like Arizona to go far? Yes. But this kind of Arizona team, they could get to Phoenix and be the de facto home team, or they could lose in the first round. Bud, Kyle Smith, Coach of the Year. He may win one of them. If they beat Arizona this week, he's going to be Pac-12 Coach of the Year for sure. Who are my front runners for Player of the Year? Well, it's Zach Edey. He's one. Then it drops down, and I don't know. I keep changing with our Player of the Year race, All Americans. I mean, Edey's there. I think for sure we're going to see Dalton Connect. Is it going to be Tristan Newton? Is it going to be Boo Buie from Northwestern? Is Kolek going to be there from Marquette? Deron Holmes from Dayton. He has to be in the consideration for a first-team All-American spot. Jaden Ledee certainly would have to be in that. Is McCullough, Dickinson, or any of those guys? R.J. Davis, excuse me. He has to be in the conversation. So I don't remember a time where there was no consensus on the first-team All-American spots. Filipowski's put up great numbers. McCain now. I disagree with you, William, that Alabama's not a top 10 team. I disagree with you. We got some Alabama haters here. Can Houston make the Final Four? Of course. Best defensive team in the country. Look, McCain's playing better than Filipowski, no question. And Jaden Ledee, I agree with you. So if Tennessee wins at Bama and at Carolina, do they win? I don't think they'll win both those road games. Mark Sears, yes, thank you. Another good name for an All-American spot. Thank you. Let's take a couple more here. Antonio Reeves is coming on strong. Jacoby Walter from Baylor. These are all good names. It's funny. Kelcat, what UConn fans are crying that they're number one, and right now they would be the number one overall seed after this weekend. There's nothing to be. But here's where we talked about this Saturday. I don't think it will matter as much because UConn's going to be in Brooklyn and Boston. It's just not going to matter that much. And who they play, all these teams are so similar, and they match up great against all of them. because they got a big in Klingen, because they have guard play with Caravan and Castle and Newton, and Spencer, excuse me. I don't think it matters who they get of their 8-9 or down the road in their 2-3s or their 4, whoever they see. And then look, Purdue, I would think will be Indy, Detroit. That's the way it'll play out. Let's take one more here. Jamal Shed, he may be Defensive Player of the Year. Can Iowa State beat Houston tonight? Of course they can beat them, even though it's on the road. Where does Seton Hall land right now? I think in the tournament. So let's leave it there because it's a good segue. Tuesday, 1 o'clock Eastern time, right here, we will have a bracket. Our March Madness team will put together our bracket. We're going to wait tonight to finalize it until after Iowa State-Houston. Obviously, we want to see what happens with Virginia Tech. But the Iowa State-Houston game, I think, will be pretty telling on the 1 and 2 line. Does it move the needle? We'll see. So that'll be 1 o'clock Eastern right here on this Bleacher Report app. As always, all of these segments are repurposed on NCAA.com, March Madness Men's Basketball. As I said, you can find me at the Andy Katz on Twitter X and then the real Andy Katz on Instagram. Thank you for everything, engaging, and we'll talk again on Tuesday.